And welcome in to Tennessee Tuesday. It's a Tuesday evening, March the 10th. I'm your host, John Blankenship. My co-host, Jason Boshears, is speaking tonight, so he's away from the microphone in the studio this evening. And we've got a special guest that will be joining us, as you see on screen this evening, Mr. Charles LeRae, who is a candidate for Lieutenant Commander-in-Chief of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. And he'll be joining us tonight. And we'll be talking about his campaign and chit-chatting a little bit this evening about things going on in our organization. But first, as we kick off, let's go ahead and show you our disclaimer that the views and opinions you hear on this broadcast are not those of the SCV, its GEC, or any division, brigade, or camp, or other subsidiaries that are a part of our organization. It is our own opinion tonight. So our disclaimer is covered. And let's say hello to a few folks that are joining us this evening in the chat tonight. We'll say hello to Mr. Owens from Virginia that's on with us this evening. We appreciate him joining us. Johnny Jenkins is a regular visitor here with us from Missouri on this evening. So hello to him. Also, let's say hello to a few other folks that are joining us this evening. Linda Hudson there from Florida. She is on with us tonight. Also, Derek Glover there from Lebanon. Of course, let's see where he's at. He's at the Patrick Claiborne dinner tonight, where Jason Boshears is speaking this evening. So we appreciate Derek jumping in this evening. Tom Vernon joining us tonight and watching from Hendersonville, North Carolina. And from down your way, Charles, you know this guy, Chuck McMichael, past Commander-in-Chief. He's down in Northwest Louisiana, so he's down your way. He's watching to make sure you say the things just like need to be said tonight. So we appreciate him. Also, Daniel joining us this evening. He's one of our regular viewers. Also, our commander from the Kentucky Division, Mr. Kyle Thompson, on this evening with us as well. Donald Gaines is joining us there from Florence, Mississippi. He's here tonight. Also from East Tennessee, David Pope is on with us from Camp 87. Charles, did you get to meet David when you were up that way?
I sure did. Yeah, it was good to meet him finally after interacting on Facebook.
Absolutely. So David's with us. And of course, he's got a show here on SCV Chat, and we'll be talking about that throughout the evening. Also, other folks joining us here from just down the road from me, Jim Collinsworth is in our camp, and he's also the chaplain for the Tennessee Division. Kim joining us tonight from Jacksonville, Florida, one of our regular viewers. We appreciate him being on tonight. Also, Mr. J.R. Price from down the road from me here in Henderson, Tennessee, in West Tennessee, is joining us. So there's a few hellos this evening, and we are glad that you are with us. A great show this evening. We'll be talking with Charles LeRae throughout the evening. Also, we've got several events going on in the Tennessee Division and a few national events we'll touch on as well that are coming up in the next few days and through the summertime, which is going to be a busy summer. And let's go ahead and not hold back and jump into our conversation this evening and introduce you to Mr. Charles LeRae, who has recently been on SCV Chat with the other guys. Now you got me tonight, and we want to talk a little bit about your campaign. And for folks that may ask, of course, both candidates have been invited, and Roy will be joining us in a future date. We'll be announcing. So both guys have agreed to be on with us and talk about their platform. But tonight we're talking to Charles LeRae, a name that you've probably heard. And Charles, I'm going to kind of open it up again. Welcome in, and tell me a little bit about who Charles LeRae is, and then we'll get into some of your history in the organization.
Okay, sure. I appreciate that. Now, I want to thank you for inviting me to be on the show. Tennessee Tuesday really has really been a great program, and I've enjoyed watching it since y'all started up and everything. So really great program, and I really enjoy watching. And so now it's a pleasure to be a guest on your show. But for those that don't know me, my name is Charles LeRae. I live down here in a little rural community, and if my screen starts freezing up or whatever, it's because I'm in the country and I don't have high-speed internet.
But so it hasn't made it to you guys in Louisiana yet, right?
Yeah, that's right. So, so I live in a little community called Grand Prairie, Louisiana, which is about an hour and a half west of Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
And actually, Baton Rouge is where I'm originally from. But I live here in Grand Prairie with my wife. We've been married 32 years. Got 3 kids, 2 grandkids. Of course, all the kids are grown and out of the house. So we're, but I'm, just a kind of little talk about my history from when I was a child? Because
go ahead and jump into that and kind of get up and tell me a little bit about what you did. A big respect because you've been in law enforcement for a career in law enforcement. First, let me say thank you for your service there in service to our country as well. I know you're a veteran too.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I did. I served in the U.S. Marine Corps from 1985 to 1989. That was actually a childhood dream of mine to serve in the Marine Corps. And then after the Marine Corps, I got on with the Louisiana State Police, and I retired from them after 27 years of service. Had actually worked at a smaller agency for about a year and a half prior to that. So basically got over 28 years of service. So definitely was a great job that saw me, that helped me raise my family and made a lot of great friends, a lot of great contacts, and just fortunate that I was able to get the job that I did. But just I kind of want to set the stage on how I became interested in the Sons of Confederate Veterans.
Yeah, what's your interest in history and how you got to where you are now?
Okay, yeah. So my dad in Baton Rouge, he was an insurance agent and he worked for National Life. And those of you from Tennessee and Nashville, probably, some of y'all might be familiar with National Life. Used to be, I think it was headquartered. I don't guess it's there anymore, but I know it was headquartered in Nashville. Mm-hmm. But when I was 7 years old, he actually moved us from Baton Rouge to Hartford, Connecticut, which is the insurance capital of the world.
Yeah.
And so, it was a good upbringing up there. It was especially interesting being up in an area with all the Revolutionary War history and everything. But, I missed my family terribly down here. Mm-hmm. So I knew I had a special connection to the South. And when I was roughly in 8th grade and I was still in Connecticut, I had a history teacher. And we were studying the war between the states, and I knew there was that whole North-South thing, and I'm like, well, but I'm from the South, mm-hmm. And so it was kind of an interesting dynamic to kind of start realizing that. And man, so I started, it really started showing an interest. And as a matter of fact, my teacher gave me his personal set of Bruce Catton's Army of the Potomac.
Oh, that's nice.
And of course, mm-hmm. It was about the Army of the Potomac, but man, I just ate it up. I just, just wanted to read as much as I could and start studying it and just know more about it and things like that. And so then, while we lived up there, every 2 years we would come back to Louisiana to visit family. And of course, I started realizing, well, man, we're passing this battlefield. And hey, Dad, this is Saltville, Virginia, and this happened here and this and that. Kind of just probably got on my dad's nerve a little bit, but I just wanted to stop at every battlefield I could. So,
so how old are you at this time? How old are you?
So, well, I lived in Connecticut from when I was 7 till 16.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then when I was 16, my dad took a job in Washington, D.C. So we moved to suburban Maryland in the suburbs there at D.C. And of course, whenever he was telling us we were moving down to that area, I was like, well, we need to be in Virginia because they were looking at homes in Virginia and Maryland. And I'm like, we need to be in Virginia. But he ended up in Maryland. And so that's where I graduated from high school and when I went into the Marine Corps. But so roughly that age, from 7 to when I graduated from high school, that was just always a big interest of mine.
Well, tell me
I knew I wanted to get into reenacting and I'd heard a little bit about the SCD, but I didn't know I had an ancestor at the time. Mm-hmm. So eventually my dad did do our genealogy and found an ancestor on my on his side. But then, after I got in the Marine Corps and got my degree and got my job and got married and started a family, mm-hmm. It was kind of just getting my career going and everything. I kind of took a little bit of a back seat and everything.
Yeah, that's fair. Somebody's got a toy back there.
Toy. Yeah, perfect. The one toy he gets, and that's the loudest one he's got.
He knows you're doing something, so he's got to get all the attention.
Yeah. So it was roughly. So I moved back to Louisiana in 1992 after I got out of the Marine Corps and I stayed living in North Carolina and got my degree in criminal justice. and I always wanted to come back to Louisiana. You know, I've got three brothers, and we're scattered all over the place. But I always wanted to come back to Louisiana because I just, you know, I missed my family terribly, my grandparents. And so when I graduated with my associate's degree in criminal justice, the next day I had a U-Haul loaded and I moved back down.
Back home. Mm-hmm.
And so like I said, it was, you know, finding a job and everything, getting all that going and whatnot. But so about roughly 1999, 2000, a good friend, a friend that I had made down here, you know, started asking me about if I was interested in the Sons of Confederate Veterans. And
Sure.
I said, oh, yeah, man. I was like, finally, you know, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, here's a good idea. Somebody's actually asking me about it, and I can learn about it and find out about it and possibly join. And he said, and he was basically telling me his idea at the time was to start a camp here in our local area, which is the closest big city. I call it. It's still not really very big comparatively to some, but Opelousas, Louisiana.
Okay.
You know, he asked me if I would help him start a camp in Opelousas. So at that time, I started doing a little bit. I started working on more genealogy, and especially on my mother's side. And that's when I found that I had a third great grandfather, Emile Simon Fontenot. Him and his brother had enlisted in April 1861 here locally in a local company, and they ended up going to the training camp at Camp Moore over north of New Orleans. And he mustered into the 6th Louisiana Infantry, and I got a hold of his service record. And when I found out he served with Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson, he was wounded in battle twice, you know, ended up losing an arm and discharged. Man, I was just like beyond excited. I said, wow, you know, because my paternal great grandfather, he ended up serving in the militia in New Orleans. Of course, he had just arrived at New Orleans in 1860. And he was basically, you know, had no connection to Louisiana, and he was basically mustered into the local militia there in New Orleans with the French Brigade. But when I found out I had one that actually fought in the Army of Northern Virginia, that was
exciting.
You know, that was all she wrote. So I joined. I ended up joining the SCV under my service under the service of Emile Fontenot. And so I joined the headquarters camp here in Louisiana. At the time, we had a headquarters camp. So I joined. That was my initial membership. And
well,
then
Charles,
I started
tell me about your ancestor. His name is very unique.
Yeah. So the Fontenot is a very, very common name here in South Louisiana.
Okay.
And we're actually the progenitors of the Fontenots. He was actually a French sergeant in the French Marines. And he was stationed in Alabama. I think it was north of Montgomery, but or either south. I forget now. But they ended up. Several of his sons ended up leaving Alabama and coming to Louisiana. So that was said. Fontenot is one of the most common names here in South Louisiana.
Well, that's a very unique name. How do you spell it for us? For
so
those
it's Fontenot. So just like my name has got a T on the end, but I pronounce it Leray, and you know, it's the same with Fontenot. That French is usually a silent T. Now, interestingly enough, I'm the only one in my family that pronounces it Leray. And really? I actually, you know, I took French in high school and then in college. And once I found out I had, you know, my great grandfather Jean-Pierre Leray had come from France, and I said, well, certainly. He did not pronounce his name Lorette. So I decided, and this was, you know, back in 1991, 92, I decided I was going to honor my great grandfather by pronouncing my name with the proper French. So that's, interesting. Like I said, I'm the only, ours is my, you know, my family and myself are the only ones in our family that pronounce it with a silent T. So now
that's an interesting note because I've never heard it said any other way. And I know some other folks with that name, and it is pronounced Leray in this area.
Yeah. And if it, in French, if it was Laurtte, which is also a name in France, or a French name, it would be pronounced Lorette. So TTE is you pronounce the T but if it's a T by itself, it's a silent T. So,
well, very, very interesting. We've got a comment here. Two of them we want first. Past Commander in Chief. I know your friend of yours, Tom Strain, saying hello this evening.
hey, Tom.
Joining in with us tonight. But there is a comment. Folks want to know about your military service as a Marine. And this gentleman says he's a fellow Marine. What made you join the Marines, and a little bit about your service, if you want to share.
Oh, okay, sure. So when I was in sixth grade, I had a great teacher. Matter of fact, he was a POW in World War II. Really great guy. His name was Jack Bannon, and he decided one day that we were going to have a career day or an occupation day. And like I said, sixth grade, you know, it's interesting at that age to have a career day, but it was more about showcasing, you know, family of the students and whatnot. So one of my best friend's dad was actually a Marine Corps officer, and Korea and Vietnam Marine Corps veteran. So he came to career day, and he was dressed in his Marine Corps uniform, not the black coat and blue trousers. He came in what we call the Alphas or the Alpha uniform, which is the green uniform.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about his service in the Marine Corps. He showed pictures of him in a fighting hole in Vietnam. But the most interesting thing he showed us was it was basically a recruiting or a promotional film strip. And of course, some of y'all remember what film strips are. Mm-hmm. But he showed a film strip about the Marine Corps recruit depot at Parris Island, South Carolina, and that's that's one of the basically the boot camp on the East Coast where Marines east of the Mississippi at the time would go and for their training and to become Marines. And I was just so fascinated by that film strip, and I said that day that one day I'm going to go to Parris Island. Oh, wow. And sure enough, between my junior and senior year, I was working at a Pizza Hut, so what am I going to do when I graduate? And so I made the decision to call a recruiter, and he came and met with me and my mom and dad, of course, and I was ready to sign the papers. Of course, at 17, I might have still been 16. I don't know if he came. Well, I was probably 17 that summer, mm-hmm. But he came and met. So I signed the paperwork and got on what we call the delayed entry program. Mm-hmm. And they scheduled my departure for boot camp 10 days after I graduated from high school.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
So I had that to look forward to. So there wasn't a whole lot of, just preparing for to leave for boot camp.
No downtime. It was quick. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was. It was very quick. So, but anyway, so I ended up going to Parris Island and graduate from June to September 1985. And well, it was tough, but it's what I wanted, and I made it through. And of course, my military occupational specialty, or MOS, my job was in the infantry. So I ended up going to infantry training school at Camp Geiger, which is a smaller camp next to Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, and eventually assigned to the 2nd Battalion, 6th Marines in the Fleet Marine Force, 2nd Marine Division at Camp Lejeune. And basically Camp Lejeune was my main duty station, except for some deployments overseas. I had the opportunity to go to Okinawa, Japan. I did what we call a med cruise, or a Mediterranean cruise on a Navy ship to the Mediterranean in 87, and a lot of good training, but a lot of good sightseeing. That's one of the good things is they take care of the men on board. When we're in port, they give they always make it give opportunities to see the to go sightseeing and things like that. So and then so when it was started getting close to the end of my enlistment in 1989. I started questioning. I said, I'd like to re-enlist, but, I saw how tough it was on families. Mm-hmm. I had friends that, lost girlfriends and wives because we were deployed for 6 months at a time and just things mm-hmm. like that. And I said, and I knew, back then that, so by that time I would have been, about roughly 22 years old. I said, sure. So if I'm going to make this a career, or if I'm going to re-enlist, I need to make this a career. And we're talking, at that time, it was roughly 20 to 25 years. Mm-hmm. But I said, I felt like I wanted to have a family, that having a family was more important to me. so I chose to go ahead and get out. And but I'll never regret what I did. That was, one of the best things I ever did in my life, and it definitely helped mold me into the man I am today.
Yeah, I'm sure it has. And as we get after the break, we'll talk more about your goals in the SCV and even more in your SCV career. I'm sure that's played an effect and a role in that too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, again, Charles Larray is our guest this evening on Tennessee Tuesday. We're talking a little history about him, learning all you need to know about. So if you've got comments, and will you take any questions tonight if folks want to ask questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, we'll do some of that. Let's say hello to a few more folks that have joined in with us this evening. Ryan McDonald has jumped on there, of course, from Carthage, Missouri. Also, we mentioned Derek Glover's here with us tonight. Floyd Harvey there, who is joining us from Hot Springs, Arkansas, from the Keller camp. Also, I think you've been over that way in Arkansas, haven't you? You've traveled.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. So Jerry Peacock joining us there from Florida as well. Derek Glover saying it was good to see you on Saturday. I saw some photographs there that Derek shared.
Yeah.
Y'all were at the GEC meeting, I believe,
Yes, we were
at headquarters. Let's see. Also, Ryan Rogers jumping in from the Alabama division. Hello to him. We appreciate him being on with us tonight. Let's see. Carl Jones left you a little comment there.
Yep, my fellow Marine right there. He and matter of fact, Carl and I were on the same. So it's called a NATO cruise, where Marines are on board naval ships, and we go up and do operations in Norway. And he and I were on two different ships, but in the same group of ships that went to Norway in late 1988. So that when we realized that was just kind of neat. So
small world, shows what a small world we live in.
Right.
Floyd Harvey joining us here this evening too. Thank you for your service there. We definitely we've said that tonight. We appreciate it. Let's see. Also joining us here, Julie Hardaway. Looking in there, and a comment there. Of course, you know her there, of the President General of UDC. So we appreciate her being on tonight. And also Roy Walton from Virginia saying hello this evening. So we appreciate all our viewers. We've got a good crowd on all our different channels. A couple of things to mention to you tonight, programming wise. So if you want to share where folks can watch Tennessee Tuesday, we have a website that's actually under development, but right now the domain name is forwarded to our YouTube channel. So you can easily go find any of these videos, the current live one, or any past, by going to TennesseeTuesday.com. So there's another option for you to watch what you hear on SCV Chat and our program, Tennessee Tuesday. So, Charles, if you'll hang around with me just a little bit, we're going to come back and talk more about your platform and some of the goals that you have for the SCV, and learn a little bit more about what you've been involved in with Sons of Confederate Veterans. So if you'll stay around with us for a little while, we'll be right back after this. So we need to go ahead and say hello to some of our sponsors this evening and thank them. Again, we couldn't do this broadcast here on Tennessee Tuesday or SCV Chat without these fine folks that you see scrolling at the bottom of the screen, and their monthly donations. It makes this possible. It buys equipment. It pays for the software. It brings this to you and our message of our Confederate ancestors. So we appreciate all these folks. You can go on Patreon for SCV Chat. There you can search it, or just go to scvchat.com, and easy to sponsor. You can become a sponsor at a different level as well for $80 a month, and you can be one of our show sponsors here. And we want to say thank you to some of those this evening as well. Here coming up in just a few minutes, we'll say thanks to all those folks. And we've got some new ones that have joined us, and we appreciate your support here of Tennessee Tuesday and SCV Chat. Well, we'll come back and we'll be talking with Charles more this evening. We've also got some other Tennessee Division news and events and activities that are going on, and we'll be right back after this. So stay with us.
Was your great-grandfather a traitor or a patriot? Today's politically correct are trying hard to take away the heritage of the brave Confederate soldiers who fought and died for their land. But one thing is certain: they can't change history. Those Confederate soldiers were fighting for the same reason soldiers fight today. They were fighting against homeland invasion. We believe that the desecration of the bravery, patriotism, and honor of those men should not be allowed. They were outmanned and outsupplied, but they were never outfought. They were proud men who believed in fighting to protect their dignity, their homes, and their families. If you're the male descendant of a Confederate soldier, we'd welcome you to join with us in the preservation of that heritage. We're the Sons of Confederate Veterans, Check us out on the internet at scv.org or call us at 800-MY-SOUTH. That's 800-697-6884. Sons of Confederate Veterans, dedicated to preserving the reputation of men like Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson, and your great-grandfather.
When my mother was in college, she danced with Confederate veterans. To me, it wasn't that far away. My father knew this. My mother knew this. Almost 50 years ago, I joined the Sons of Confederate Veterans. In those days, we weren't concerned about saving monuments or any of those things. That wasn't necessary. In fact, none of us had any remote idea that it would ever come up. We can't just sit there and react. We have to be proactive. Or, as Robert E. Lee said, the best way to disrupt your enemy's plans is to strike first. Everyone should do all in his power to collect and disseminate the truth, in the hope that it may find a place in history and descend to posterity. History is not the relation of campaigns and battles and generals or other individuals, but that which shows the principles for which the South contended and which justified her struggle for those principles. If you're looking for some place to be where you think you're going to accomplish something to save our history, go to the Sons of Confederate Veterans. I'm Thomas Lee Jesse. I'm a descendant of Private Daughtery Gilmer, a Confederate veteran.
Welcome back into Tennessee Tuesday. It is Tuesday evening, March the 10th. I'm John Blankenship, your host of the program. Joining me tonight is our special guest, Mr. Charles LeRae, and we're going to be talking here in just a moment about more of his SCV career and some of his goals as he's a candidate for Lieutenant Commander-in-Chief of our organization. We'll be talking with him more about that tonight, but we do want to thank our sponsors this evening. Dr. Chris Cummings is one of our show sponsors, Modern Medicine, Southern Hospitality, and got to meet Dr. Cummings several years ago when he spent some time in Jackson, Tennessee, and practicing here. A great doctor that specializes in knee pain. As we all get older and deal with that, that's something we're probably going to face, and Dr. Cummings can help you out with that, and he's one of our show sponsors this evening. We also want to say thank you to the 31st Regiment Engraving. Again, you see on the screen some of the products that they can make for you. Again, we appreciate them and their Southern themed items and custom laser engraved gifts. And you see some samples of some of the work they can do. They're one of our show sponsors this evening. Also, thanks to past Commander-in-Chief Larry McClooney. Of course, we're promoting his new book, A Paradox of Freedom, A History of Black Slaveholders in America. And Larry is going to be at our SCV headquarters on Saturday in the book festival, and we'll be talking more about that. He'll have that copy available for that book and his others as well. He'll be speaking this Saturday, so we'll tell you more about that coming up too. Also, we want to thank one of our newer sponsors, Beauregards Taylor. Again, you can see some of the work they do. So if you're in need of a uniform there's some of the samples they have there, such as lapel pins as well, reproduction flags, T-shirts. Beauregardstaylor.shop is their website if you would like to go learn more about them. Also, and finally tonight, one of our show sponsors, the museum at Market Hall. Got to see that when we were in Charleston, South Carolina a couple of years ago. For the National Union. Again, their hours are Thursday through Sunday, and if the flag is out, they are open. So, of course, the home there of the Confederate Museum, the museum at Market Hall in Charleston, South Carolina. So we appreciate their sponsorship this evening as well of Tennessee Tuesday and SCV Chat. If you'd like to learn more about sponsorships, visit the website, scvchat.com. All the details are posted there. So let's jump back into our conversation with our guest this evening, Mr. Charles LeRae, who has been in the SCV, as we've learned tonight, for several years. We got up to where he joined and kind of helped form a camp. And I know he's been involved in several different positions and roles in our organization and is now a candidate for Lieutenant Commander-in-Chief of our organization. That's the second person in command of the SCV. And Charles, let's kind of jump in a little bit tonight about what are some of the things you've done in the organization, and then we'll kind of get to where you want it to be.
Okay. So I indicated how I joined the SCV was at the invitation of a good friend locally, and And so once I got on, he said, look, I'd really like to start a camp. So we have one here close, because the closest camp to the area where we live was roughly about 30 minutes. So he asked me to help start the camp, and we actually resurrected an old number. It was of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. It was named after a local Confederate veteran, Camp 778.
Sure.
But he wanted to name it after Brigadier General J.J. Alfred A. Mouton, who was originally was born in Opelousas, but was a resident of Vermilionville, which is actually Lafayette now, which is a larger city, just about 20 minutes south of Opelousas. So we resurrected the number. We got the 7 members that we needed to start the camp. Named it after General Mouton, and used that old number and started the camp. And so my friend Mike, he was commander, and I started off as lieutenant commander, and had no experience in the Sons of Confederate Veterans at all. But it was really just an exciting experience to start a camp and be involved in that. So that was really a unique experience. So,
and sometimes that's kind of how it happens. We join, and immediately I was kind of the same way. Past brigade commander, he said, John, I got a camp that needs reactivated, and we put you to work fast.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. So we ended up, starting the camp, and within a year, the commander ended up stepping down, and so I naturally stepped into the commander position. So within a year of joining the SCV, roughly, I became a commander of a camp, and so I was proud to do that. Really, took off running with it. Really, we're very active. Matter of fact, we started having Confederate Memorial Day ceremonies. We have a Confederate monument at on the courthouse square. So we held our first Confederate Memorial Day ceremony there, and that ended up resulting in a heritage violation. But I can talk about that a little bit later. But basically, it was kind of like a baptism by fire type deal. So within a few years after that, I stepped up to serve as brigade commander for the Southwest Brigade of Louisiana. Within 7 years, I was elected division commander of Louisiana. So I served as division commander from 2008 to 2010. And then, up till that time, I really never had been involved or in national issues. It was more, it's like, I want to make sure my camp's good and solid and strong, and just involve myself in division offices and things like that. But so in 2010, Michael Givens asked me to serve as his chief aide de camp. So I did that from 2010 to 2012. Then said, well, this is quite an honor to be involved on the national level. And so I felt I could do a lot for our area, for the Army of Trans-Mississippi. So I ran for Army of Trans-Mississippi councilman, and served in that position from 2012 to 2014. And actually, again, here recently, I served in the same position from 22 to 24. Sure. And within Army of Trans-Mississippi commander from 2014 to 16. And then, Tom Strain, our commander in chief from 2016 to 2018. He didn't really know a whole lot about me, but he saw something in me and asked me to serve as his national chief of staff. And so that was quite an honor to be able to serve right there at to serve the commander in chief. Basically be his right-hand man, or the other hand is apart from the lieutenant commander in chief.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then whenever he completed his term, Paul Gramling asked me to stay on as national chief of staff. So I did that and finished that up in 2020. And so we took a little break, like I said, and again, came back on from 22 to 24. And now here we took another break, and here we are, ready to serve the SCV as the lieutenant commander in chief.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about, of course, a lot of different positions you've served in, so lots of experience there. Let's talk about during some of those. Do you want to highlight a couple of things you're kind of proud of that you were involved in and that you had a hand in? Are there some things that stand out?
Oh yeah, certainly. So we can start off at the camp level.
Yeah.
I said so. We held our first Confederate Memorial Day ceremony, and that involved laying a wreath. And of course, Opelousas had never seen this before. There was never, a Confederate Memorial Day, or at least in modern times. Let me put it to you like that. So we held a Confederate Memorial Day ceremony, and we laid a wreath and left 2 battle flags there at the base of the monument. And a local, so here in Louisiana, we don't have counties, we have parishes.
Sure.
And at that time, the parish was governed by what they call the police jury. And that's been since way back. So one of the local police jurymen, it was brought to his attention from another resident that brought him the Confederate flags that we had left at the monument. And, he took issue with it, brought it into the police jury meeting, wanted to know who was responsible for this, that, and he actually broke the sticks. They were 12 by 12 battle flags.
Oh, God.
He actually broke the sticks and threw them in a trash can.
Oh,
and of course, that just caused the biggest, what we call in Louisiana, tracas. It's like just this big upheaval. And, so everybody at that point wanted to know, where did this, who's this group, the Sons of Confederate Veterans, and where did they come from? And so, I ended up meeting with the Louisiana Division Commander at the time, who was Chuck Rand, who some might remember. He was Chief of Staff and also Adjutant in Chief.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that he came down from Monroe, and we ended up speaking to the police jury, explaining who we were. And unfortunately for that, it ended up resolving itself. A majority of them had no issue with what we were doing. So that was like I said, that was a little baptism by fire, as being still a green SCV member, but basically running the camp and trying to and responding to that. Then immediately after that, we ended up wanting to march in a local parade, and to get some exposure. And of course, that caused an issue. The local police department, the chief said, I can't protect y'all, and we're going to have to. And the organizers of the parade asked us to step out and not put our group in there and everything. And thanks again, I had the support of the Louisiana Division helping me through it, and we ended up marching in the parade, and that went very well. And finally, another one. There was a bicentennial celebration of the parish, and they invited all local groups and organizations to set up a booth on the courthouse square. Well, we said, perfect, a good recruiting booth. And, certainly St. Landry Parish mustered a lot of units for the Confederacy. We put in an application. They gave us the runaround, wouldn't tell us if we were in or out. And, unfortunately, we had to pay $5,000. And thankfully, we were helped by National to hire a lawyer to file an injunction that would have shut down the entire celebration. And of course, they relented, but not after we had to spend, $5,000 to do what was right.
Get there, yeah,
to get there, to get what was right done. So that went well, but that was, something I was heavily involved in. And here as recently as 2022. We had a local man call for the removal of our Confederate monument. And now it's no longer a police jury. It's basically just called a parish council.
Sure.
And they passed a resolution to remove the monument.
Is that like a county commission, what I would know up here for? It's kind of the government of the county for here.
Yes. Okay. And they have, and like I said, so each county or parish council person represents a different part of the parish.
So they're elected just like we would see.
Yes, that's correct. Okay. Yeah. And so, but interestingly enough, when they voted or when they passed the resolution or put the resolution together, that they actually gave the monument to us.
Oh, wow.
And so I guess at the time, maybe they thought that would make us responsible for removing it. And we told them, we're not paying to move it. Y'all want to move it? Y'all move it. We'll find a place for it. And that's about as, what we did. But eventually when they realized how much it would cost, it kind of just fell apart. And, fortunately our monument is still there. So that was, those were some very interesting times in, serving in the camp and just being right there in the forefront, dealing with heritage violations that would come around. So.
Absolutely. So some of the things you've been involved in there. Again, we're going to kind of get into the discussion a little bit now, what some of the things some of your goals are, things you'd like to see happen in the organization, and a little bit more about your campaign. Again, you've got a website, Charles, here that we've put on the screen, LaRaeForDixie.com, so they can go there anytime and learn more about maybe stuff we don't talk about tonight. They can find out all the details and also contact you as well.
That's right. And like I said, I'm not going to cover everything that's on my website, but if there, for my full resume, for my full campaign announcement, and for my battle plan, what I like to call my, my platform, please go to that website and check it out. Matter of fact, it's just been updated to with a new tab to show places that I've been. I've been traveling over the last several months. Doing a lot of visits, providing historical programs, and at the same time being able to talk about my campaign. So be sure to check out that new tab that's on the website as well if you've been to it but haven't visited in a while.
Well, let's kind of jump into the conversation now. Again, that's something we want to make sure that folks are aware. All the opinions you hear tonight are our own. Again, we're not representing the organization on anything we say. So that's our disclaimer. We like to make sure that's out there and folks know that tonight. And again, I see there's some questions. And at the end of this, I know folks that are asking a few, if you're still willing to take a few, we'll try to get some of those in tonight, but as time permits. But let's kind of jump into where do you see, let's kind of start it this way, Charles. Where do you see the SCV is now to maybe where it needs to go?
Well, as everybody knows that, our biggest issue right now is recruiting and retention. Mm-hmm. And, having served on the council, the General Executive Council, it's always an issue. And, nobody has the perfect answer for how to deal with this. But, people need to know, the Sons of Confederate Veterans is not the only organization dealing with this issue.
Yeah.
Veterans organization, historical organizations are all dealing with, with these kind of issues. Because there's so much out there now that divides the attention of so many people. Mm-hmm. But one of the toughest things that we deal with, we deal with something nobody else deals with, and that is the public perception about why we exist.
That's very true.
Mm-hmm. That makes it very hard for us. I mean, even harder than, I know I've talked to members of the American Legion and the VFW, the Marine Corps League, and, it's to get new members in, it's to get them active, engaged, and doing things. So, believe me, it's not something that is only the Sons of Confederate Veterans is dealing with.
Yeah, all organizations are dealing with the trying to keep members involved in that retention. But you said something interesting, and I'm careful of the terminology I want to use to make sure people take it right. Sometimes our message is just controversial to people that don't know anything about it. So you've already got that there. So there's somewhere we got to get this message that it's not so controversial to people.
Right. Exactly. Just sharing with them that, we're an organization that just is simply honoring our Confederate ancestors. And we've got our position on hate groups and how we address things like that. And, we just got to get that message out there as positively as we can. And, one of my biggest pushes, and for those that have been following me since I made my campaign announcement, I'm just very, very strongly involved on social media. And that's one of my battle plan parts of my platform.
Sure.
Is using social media. And, at the same time, I realize, we do have older membership that don't, that aren't involved in things like that. But when you're talking about recruiting, if we can reach out to certain demographics, it's my plan to put together a committee that'll make better use of social media. We have an SCV Facebook page. We've got a YouTube channel. But I just, at this point, I don't feel like they're being used as effectively as they can be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my position to make better use of social media. Like I said, I'm very engaged on my own pages. As a matter of fact, you can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, and also X. I don't get a whole lot of traction on X, but still it's out there. But the most important thing is that they're not ghost accounts. And so one of the things I'd like to see is putting together a committee of members that know how to use social media, know what the most effective way to use it, and increase our presence on the digital landscape, and also make use of digital marketing, a digital marketing campaign. I realize we're doing the billboards, and that's great, but making more of an impact on the digital landscape is something that I really feel that we need to do. And I definitely want to push our organization in that direction.
Absolutely. Again, social media is very important in some form or fashion. Most everybody has looked at it or done something with how deep you are into it, but it's very important when you're getting a younger audience. And, something I've learned, Charles, along the way and working in social media and working around different age groups, sometimes the younger people are not using as much as the older generation is. It's all over the place where folks are using it, but we've got to embrace it. Even shows like this and using the YouTube, the Facebook Lives, and so on, and Instagram. We've got to be out there with our message and doing it in a positive way. Again, sometimes I've seen in the past, we put a lot of our negative stuff out to the public. We want to show our positive things. What are we doing good? And how do we make it even better and make it more attractive to someone that says, I'm interested, but how do we make it more attractive?
Yeah. And that's a good point. And that's another reason that I'm pushing social media. So, if you've ever typed in anything about, just simply the word Confederate or something like that, hell, even ChatGPT, you want to have an image with the something Confederate, and then we can't do that. That violates
quickly it'll kick you out. I try that all the time. You have to be creative, like use a first national flag. It'll still do that.
Yeah, but I've seen surprising. If I mention the battle flag or Confederate, I get shot down a lot. But I've noticed some people actually get it, and I'm not sure what they're using. Yeah. But there actually is a battle flag in their AI generated picture. And I've said, well, how did you do that? Because they tell me, and I'll get in this whole long argument with AI or ChatGPT. Well, I realize you're upset, but this and that, maybe there's something else I can do for you. And I'll tell them, I said, y'all are ridiculous. You're insulting my organization. I've said, I've been a member for 25 years, and there's nothing, the things that you're implying as to why you can't generate the picture I'm asking you to do, that it's not that way. And then they're like, well, certainly we're not implying that everybody in your organization, it's just, it's just stuff like that. So, the more we put positive things out there on social media and the digital landscape, we can hopefully start overcoming some of that stuff that people get, the negative information people get when they do search about the South and the war between the states, or and the Sons of Confederate Veterans. We need to put as much content out there as we possibly can to start kind of changing that algorithm where people get more positive results about us and our history and our ancestors.
And
that's one of the things I've started. I'm sorry.
That's kind of the slogan there that we've got for this show now, because it's our history to tell. If we as Southerners that know this history, if we tell it and do our jobs right and get it out there, that helps improve it. We know the story. We got to be the ones to tell it. Don't depend on others.
That's exactly right. And one of the things I came up with was, we can make so much use of the simple hashtag. I started a hashtag recruit SCV. And so anytime I share anything off of my page, that's the main hashtag that I use. And, there's so many camps and brigades and divisions, I feel like it's really important that we all know what each other's doing and what's going on. And if you start using those hashtags, if you post something on social media, use it, even if it, you don't have to use the one I came up with, Recruit SCV. Just simply hashtag SCV. If we can literally connect all our events and things that we're doing and the positive things that we're doing out there and connect those on the internet. I just feel like that's just a positive way that we can do that. And like I said, that will be my main focus as Lieutenant Commander in Chief, is to make better use of social media to get our message out there and hopefully, turn the tide and make search results that are put out there about our organization and our ancestors and our history and heritage. Turn that around.
A comment, Charles, that folks are kind of asking, and it's a good question that maybe in our organization, we don't know the roles of what is the role of the Lieutenant Commander in Chief of the SCV? What is their main responsibilities that are on paper that they do?
It's definitely recruiting and retention. Yeah. And, we're touching on that big time. I mean, going back to what I said, it's a tough job. And past lieutenant commanders in chief, we all face the same thing. And it's still an issue. And, we just got to come up with some fresh new ideas. I compliment Lieutenant Commander in Chief Tony. He's done some good things with the billboards. I certainly appreciate that. And but again, just to get back to your question, so recruiting and retention. So that's something that'll be my main focus and something I feel I can make a difference in should I be elected.
Absolutely. Well, let's kind of move on as we go. We're a little bit in front of 8 o'clock. We'll make sure you got plenty of time to touch on some things. What are some of the other things you'd like to see? And Charles, I'm going to kind of let you take it where you want to go, because I want to make sure you get the things that you want to get out there.
Right. So, one of the things I'd really like to touch on is us building back up the cadet program. We had the cadet program, and it's been kind of waning. It started off really strong. We had some great numbers. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'd really like to see a revitalization of the cadet program. More youth involvement. We get our sons involved in the SCV, kind of tagging along with us, get them involved in everything. So I'd like to encourage camps to get back into that, to get the youngsters into the cadet program. Something else it's interesting that I'd like to do is encourage a mentorship program. Older members taking new members under their wing. That can show them what we're all about, encourage their involvement in all the activities of the camp and things like that.
Charles, you say that
that's really important.
Let's kind of break that down a little bit, because that's really good, a mentorship program. And I think that's something I've heard a lot of folks talk about that. And we look, I say, in the Tennessee division, as being commander of the division, sometimes it's a challenge to find people to serve in certain roles that maybe are appointed as well. Yeah. Because nobody's really, like they did me, they took me by the wing and kind of guided me, hey, here's where we'll need you, and make sure you understand the organization. So that's a really important role to teach those that are coming in to learn more about us. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it would be it'd just be a positive thing to, to make them feel more included. And even like I would encourage a junior leadership program. We have a chief aide de camp and cadet aides de camp on a national level. And they're the young men that serve at the pleasure of the commander in chief and help out during the national reunion. Well, I think it would be kind of neat if camp commanders would appoint quote unquote a junior member, a cadet member, as like his little aide de camp or something like that, and so kind of get them involved more in the camp and make them feel like they're involved on a somewhat of a leadership and a service position in the camp.
Again, this evening, Charles LeRae is our guest here. He's a candidate for Lieutenant Commander in Chief of the SCV. Again, that website there is LeRae for Dixie with the number 4.com, and you can learn more about some of the things we're talking about him and platform. And Charles, as we continue our conversation, what are some of the other things that out there you want to touch on tonight?
Well, I just, just a couple of things. I know we're getting kind of long, and I know people's time is valuable, and I don't want to stretch it out too long, but, and certainly again, I welcome y'all to visit my website, and I appreciate you sharing the link to that. But, we talk about communication being a big issue. Look, that has probably been one of the biggest issues. Yeah, and it's been an issue. I served on the, and all the positions I've served, it's been an issue. And as Army commander, as ATM commander, a decade ago, I took whatever information was coming down from the commander in chief or whatever was coming down from headquarters, and I would push it out to my division commanders and expect them to push it down to their brigades and camps and things like that. But I mean, honestly, emails are just something people don't, they're just not engaged with. And, I don't have an answer for that, but, it's something I found interesting. I'm a member, I'm a devout Roman Catholic, been what they call a cradle Catholic. I've been a Catholic all my life. And, very proud of my faith and being, I'm very involved in my church. I'm a lector, I'm a singer, and I'm also a member of the Knights of Columbus. And, our Knights of Columbus council is about the same size as, most of the camps. And we use the GroupMe app. And I know I mentioned that, I think, in a comment, and you said you weren't familiar with it, but it's a way to, instead of like just texting individuals or, and then some phones don't support like a text group. There's only so many you can text at the time, but, so something like a GroupMe app where you can send out something to, keep people informed about what's going on, camp meetings, camp functions, and things like that. So that's something to look at. Also, again, if you got a Facebook page, putting your information, your contact information out there. But, I want to stress that, and I understand, our membership is, above, a majority of our membership is above 65, and they might have, if they got a phone at all, it might be a flip phone or a phone that's still on the wall at their house. So, I want to encourage, camp commanders to make sure that, as we move forward on the digital landscape, that we make sure that we don't leave behind those members that just don't do that. And that if that involves making phone calls, and sending even a personal letter, or something, and because like I said, they may be to the point where they don't make meetings, but we still want to make them engaged. And this gets to the point of making sure that we try to keep our membership. We fight to bring them in, but we're also fighting to keep them in. And it's just really important that we make sure we don't leave behind those members that don't engage on any level on the on a computer or on a smartphone.
Absolutely. Very good point. Well, as we get about ready, it's 8:00 and about time to wrap up a few things here, but I've got one question I want to put out here to you. And again, Charles, you can go back and see some of these in the comments. And if you want to answer some of these directly later, or they can reach out to you as we get back. But here's one that is a good question here from Jerry. He says, with their nation celebrating 250th anniversary, how can the SCV be involved in that?
Well, that's a great thing. And, I've thought about that. And of course, if I were to have the honor of being elected, I think, we should be definitely pushing, or it'll be like the second half of the 250th anniversary year. But, we could make so many strides with the public, supporting all the events of the 250th anniversary. Just making sure that they understand, the importance of the founding of our country. Because, and we all know that, our ancestors were carrying the torch.
That's true.
Our ancestors were carrying the true torch of the ancestors of 1776. So, I can see, and I would love to get the SCV involved on a digital campaign or a campaign, however that may be, showing how much we support the founding of our country and the celebration that we're undergoing right now this year, and also stressing that if they were right in 1776, our ancestors were right in 1861.
Absolutely. Well, again, LorrayForDixie.com is the website they can go to, Charles, to learn more about you. For folks that may want other ways, are there other ways to reach you on social media, and how can they contact you?
Yep. So you can find me, Lorray for Dixie, on Instagram, and also Lorray for Dixie on X. And it's if you just type in Charles quote SCV unquote Lorray in Facebook, you'll find my page. It's a public page, so you can find me there. And that's my most active, and I'm really happy with the engagement that I get on Facebook. I'm very engaged. Matter of fact, when I was on my way up to the GEC, I passed and I had passed it before, but I know how important it is. And this goes back to not having a ghost account. You need to be engaged. You need to have content out there. And so I'm like, I passed one of the Army of Tennessee Memorial Highway signs, and I just posted a picture of me standing by the sign. Yeah. And pointing to it, and just put, if you know, and that was, I just was really surprised at the engagement that one little simple picture got, and especially when I went to the analytics and saw that I had more, more members of my page than members of my page that were actually that had actually seen that picture. So. Like I said, that's just, I'm proud of my Facebook page, and I'm thankful. I think I've got over 1,800 at this point. I've got over 1,800 that have joined my page. So that's been great. And and like I said, and again, my push will be for our presence on social media to get more of us to get more exposure out there for our organization.
Absolutely. Again, LorrayForDixie.com. You can learn more. Charles, of course, for folks that probably know this, the election will be at the National Convention in Kentucky coming up in July. So if folks want to be there, do you want to touch on briefly how they would vote for you if they would consider putting their vote your way in July? What do they need to do to be ready for that?
Okay, so your camps have what we call what are delegate votes. You send delegates to the convention. It's important that you make sure that your camp uploads the credentials form, so that that each delegate is listed and that will cast votes on behalf of your camp. According to the Constitution, Section 8 deals with voting, and you have one delegate vote for 10 members of your camp. And, you can either bring all those delegate votes for one candidate, but it's also possible to split those votes. If you choose, if half of your camp decides they like the other candidate as well, you can also do that as well. But it's very important that, your camp discuss the candidates, check out the platforms, make an informed decision. That's very important. And then, like I said, well before, you want to make sure before July rolls around that your camp collectively makes a decision on how y'all want to vote, and then you can support and endorse a candidate all you want, but it is most effective when you send a delegate to vote for them, because if you support them but you don't send a delegate, it doesn't help the candidate. It's
great and fine, but it doesn't help the candidate in the end. Absolutely.
That's right. So I encourage everybody to make sure you send delegates with informed decisions on how you want to cast your votes.
Absolutely. Well, again, Charles Lorray has been our guest. He is a candidate for Lieutenant Commander in Chief of the SCV. That's coming up in July at the National Reunion. Charles, always glad to have you here on SCV Chat and now on Tennessee Tuesday. Appreciate your comments on our programs, and know the door is always open anytime you want to come out.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm seeing the questions and everything. And just to let y'all know, I will follow up. Like I said, there's so much talking going on, and I can't really interact and see every question.
Yeah.
But I will follow up post show and try to answer as many questions as I can. And thank y'all so much for engaging tonight and taking the time to watch me. I look forward to seeing y'all in Lexington.
Absolutely. Well, great, Charles. Thank you so much. And we'll be in touch and talk again soon.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Well, all right. We appreciate Mr. Charles Array joining us this evening here on Tennessee Tuesday at SCV Chat. As we continue along, we do have some division news to share with you. We'll go ahead and take our next break, and we'll come back and do that and wrap up this evening's show. Again, thank you to Mr. Charles Array for being our guest tonight, who is a candidate for Lieutenant Commander-in-Chief of the SCV. We'll be right back after this. Our Southern heritage is under attack. Whose heritage, some may ask? Well, the heritage of those that love God, their families, and their homes. We must stand together and fight back against those who wish to destroy it. The Sons of Confederate Veterans regard these attacks as frivolous and are committed to preserve and protect our history. We can't do it alone. We need your help. To learn more about membership, visit TennesseeSCV.org. If not us, who? If not now, when?
There is a place, nestled in the rolling farmland of southern Middle Tennessee. A home, constructed in 1837, nearly lost to the ravages of war. Saved by a servant and a Confederate general. A place where families loved and lost. If walls could talk, what stories could be told? If a place, a home, can feel love, loss, pain, surely this is one of those places. Nearby is a more recent structure, and inside are the stories of heroes and heroines, stories of battles won and lost. Stories of sacrifices made by the people of its native soil. A place that will tell the true and complete story of the Southland and the war fought for its freedom. From the causes that led to the conflict to the modern-day struggles to protect Southern history. Historic Elm Springs and the Confederate Museum at Elm Springs are the general headquarters for the Sons of Confederate Veterans. A place where the story of the Southland and its historic struggle is preserved and told. Come and discover your history.
And welcome back into Tennessee Tuesday on SCV Chat. I'm your host, John Blankenship, with you here for just a little while longer as we get ready to wrap up this Tuesday edition of the show. Again, thank you to Mr. Charles Array for being our guest this evening. And, of course, Mr. Roy Hudson will be coming up here in the near future. We'll have him on the program on Tennessee Tuesday. And also, he's coming up on Look Around the Confederation as well on SCV Chat. So you'll have your opportunity to hear from Mr. Roy Hudson coming up later on in a future program. So let's go ahead and go through a few news bits tonight again and say hello to a couple of folks that are commenting tonight. Again, Mr. Gaines, we appreciate you watching the program this evening. Again, Toby joining us a little late tonight. We are glad he is here. And again, we appreciate all those that are joining us here on the show tonight. Let's take a look now at a little bit of Tennessee Division business. And want to go ahead and mention we're working to have past Division Commander Mike Beck, who is a part of our Tennessee Division reunion in April. There was a little confusion about when he was going to be on the show, so I've talked to Mike, and he will be on the program, looks like next week. We will have him back on the show to talk about activities they've got planned for our Tennessee Division reunion. And let's kind of jump into that because that will be here before we know it, April the 17th and 18th. It will be in Morristown. There you see the flyer there to get your application in and your registration in, I should say. So we're getting into March now, so you need to get that taken care of. Again, you can go to our website, TennesseeSCB.org. That application is there, and go ahead and get that mailed in and to get your registration done. Again, the host hotel is the Candlewood Suites there in Morristown. Going to be a good event. Looking forward to doing our business, and something you rarely get to say you've been a part of, especially at a division reunion, is a monument dedication. We've been talking about this for a while. The Bradford Rose Camp there that's hosting our division reunion, and the Sam Davis UDC have the monument dedication at the General Longstreet Museum on that Saturday afternoon at 2:00. So after our business session, we will be traveling over to Russellville to the Longstreet Museum to see this just wonderful monument they put together. And I have some photographs to show you tonight. We'll put a few of those on screen. Some of the guys up there from the camp and others working on. There's the base of the monument. They'll be getting ready to put the soldier on top. But here's a few photos as they were putting the concrete top there on. And let's show you something really neat. Here's a time capsule that's being put down the center of that monument. So appreciate Jordy Barnett sharing these photographs with us. And there you can see that time capsule being dated, the Longstreet Museum there in the background. Again, there's Jordy and Josh Cameron there working on putting items in that time capsule. So this monument dedication, again, is there's an aerial view from up top. The guys working, mixing the concrete for the monument that will be dedicated coming up in April during the Tennessee Division reunion again on that Saturday afternoon. Even if you're not coming to the Division reunion and you're just traveling through and would like to be a part of that, that is at 2:00. So looking forward to that event as part of our reunion. Again, Jason Boshears, my co-host, is not with us tonight because he is speaking this evening and has been speaking. He may be wrapped up now. I don't know. Jason can talk a while, so he may still be going. The General Patrick Claiborne birthday celebration in the McLemore Brigade there. That's this evening, of course. That's where Jason is. So if you're wondering where he is tonight, so a shout out to him and speaking all around. Again, of course, don't forget about the awards banquet, which is part of our division reunion there. And there's the Morristown Landing, by the way, where we'll be having our meeting. Very nice property. So that's going to be a good event coming up. Also, we want to go ahead and mention this event that's coming up on March the 21st on a Saturday evening. That will be at 6 p.m. This is the Highland Brigade's event there for the second annual General Patrick Claiborne and St. Patrick Dinner. Again, that's on Saturday, March the 21st at the Meadows in Monterey, there in Monterey, Tennessee. Again, the event being coordinated there by Mike Dunn of the Dillard Judd Camp, and it's the Highland Brigade's special event. So if you're interested in knowing more about that, you can visit the Highland Brigade on social media, and there's more details about that available to you. Also, another event that's coming up this weekend. I plan to go to this on Saturday. Headquarters. It's the Sam Watkins Book Festival, which is coming up on March the 14th, this Saturday at Elm Springs there in Columbia. There's going to be guest speakers. You see those on the screen, and of course, a chance for you to pick up some great War Between the States books from 9 till 4 there. They've got a lot that's been added to the collection that they weren't able to use, and some that have been donated. And, of course, funds from the sale of this go back to our museum. And you can see the speakers there, of course, that are going to be there on Saturday. And our very own, one of our sponsors of our program, Larry McClooney, and his new book, Paradox of Freedom. He'll have that available and speaking from noon to 1. Again, that's the Sam Watkins Book Festival coming up this Saturday. Also, registration is still out there now. If you haven't done this, time is running out. Again, this will be the National Chaplains Conference, which will be held at Elm Springs. Again, that's coming up on March the 28th from 9 until 3. So if you're interested in that, that information can be found by reaching out to SCV headquarters. And there's the cost and the availability for the event. So I know several that are going to that. Another great event. Also, the pilgrimage and Confederate Memorial Service coming up at our headquarters at the Southern Heritage Center, Elm Springs, and the National Confederate Museum. This will be on May the 2nd. The grounds will open at 9. Looking forward to being in Columbia for this. And then it'll happen all the way until 4 o'clock. The grounds will be open. The Confederate Memorial Service will be at 11 a.m. Our very own Commander-in-Chief will be the Master of Ceremonies, Donnie Kennedy. And then you've got the keynote address there by Teresa Roan. And, of course, there'll be music by Strings of Secession. That's going to be a good event there, the pilgrimage at our headquarters in Columbia. So go ahead and make plans for that event. Also on the same date, May the 2nd, it's the Army of Tennessee Workshop and Reunion. There's the guest speakers for the evening, including Rich Garcia, Forrest Dawes, Jimmy Hill, and Connor Bond. The conference is going to focus on crucial areas for local communities, such as recruiting, retention, heritage operations, and community involvement. That's from 9 until 3 on May the 2nd. There you can reach out to Army of Tennessee Commander Carl Jones if you'd like more information about registering for that event. So lots of things are happening and coming up in the near future as we get into the springtime. Always a busy time for the Sons of Confederate Veterans. And again, this evening, we thank you for being a part of this show. We could not do it without your support and all the views and the shares that we've had. Do appreciate that. A couple of programming notes to tell you about. Again, you can go to TennesseeTuesday.com. That's our new website. Eventually, there will be a full website developed. Right now, that is forwarded to our YouTube page where you can go back and watch previous episodes of Tennessee Tuesday. Again, that website there you can see on the screen is TennesseeTuesday.com. So we encourage you to go check that out and watch any of the past episodes. And like tonight, we heard from Charles Array. If you'd want to go back and listen to some of that, that is available to you on our website. And also scbchat.com. You can go check that out and you'll find out about all of the programs which are on this network. And let's go over those as we get ready to wrap up this evening. Oh, by the way, it's been a beautiful few days here in West Tennessee. Loving this weather as it's warming up and things are starting to come back to life and grow, and just excited about being able to get outside and do events and activities. Other programs that, of course, you hear on the show, of course, Monday nights is the SCV chat program, which is at 7 p.m. Of course, our show here on Tuesday nights at 7 Central Time. And Wednesday is Look Around Florida here on the network with Sean McFall. And then on Thursday night, the first Thursday night of the month, is Commander Comments, where you'll get to hear from Commander-in-Chief Donnie Kennedy. Then the other Thursdays are Look Around the Confederation, and special guests are lined up on those as well. So make sure you follow SCV Chat on social media, and you can see all of the guests that are lined up for that program. And then on Friday night on the Friends of Douglas Southall Freeman Facebook group, you can listen to our friend David Pope, who is there with his show at 7 o'clock. And then finally, our friend Michael Hardy from North Carolina and Hardy on History on his Facebook page. He is live on most Sunday nights at 7:30, and I got to watch some of his show this past week, and I know he's working on a new book I saw him talking a little bit about. So those are some of the programs that we have here on SCV Chat, and of course, we thank you for supporting Tennessee Tuesday. Well, I believe that's all the comments. Again, we thank our folks for joining us. Daniel, thank you for being with us tonight. Of course, Linda commenting here. Love hearing past Commander-in-Chief Jason Boshier speak. He is a fantastic speaker, and we miss him being on the show tonight. And let's see, I believe on the third Tuesday of the month, Jason may not be with us next week. He may have a camp meeting. So we look forward to him being back with us next week. And we're looking forward to, hopefully we've got the scheduling right, to have past Division Commander Mike Beck, who is helping organize our Tennessee Division reunion. He is going to be on with us next week to talk more details about that. And again, Linda, another comment there. We appreciate those kind comments from you. And again, Johnny joining us as well. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And we do hope you have yourself a wonderful rest of this week and into this weekend. And hope you'll be back with us next Tuesday night. Have yourself a great rest of this evening, and God bless you.